So good to be here with you all. It is cold outside, but it is warm in here. I'd like to begin just by wishing everyone a happy Cyber Monday. It's going okay? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay,
Happy
good.
New Year to you.
Right back at you. Yeah. All right. Well,
Did you have a good Black Friday, by the way?
it was pleasant. Thank you. Yeah. It is a new year, and I am thrilled to have the chance to be here and talk with you a little bit about Christmas presents. Yeah, that's a pun. That's all. And I want to begin this by telling a little story featuring Winnie the Pooh, Piglet, and Eeyore. Okay? It goes something like this. I'm going to read it. I don't have it memorized. It occurred to Pooh and Piglet that they hadn't heard from Eeyore for several days. So they put on their hats and coats and trotted across the 100-acre wood to Eeyore's stick house. Inside the house was Eeyore. "Hello, Eeyore," said Pooh. "Hello, Pooh. Hello, Piglet," said Eeyore in a glum-sounding voice. "We just thought we'd check in on you," said Piglet, "because we hadn't heard from you. And so we wanted to know if you were okay." Eeyore was silent for a moment. "Am I okay?" he asked, eventually. "Well, I don't know, to be honest. Are any of us really okay? That's what I ask myself." "All I can tell you, Pooh and Piglet, is that right now I feel really rather sad and alone and not much fun to be around at all. Which is why I haven't bothered you. Because you wouldn't want to waste your time hanging around with someone who is sad and alone and not much fun to be around at all, would you now?" Pooh looked at Piglet, and Piglet looked at Pooh, and they both sat down, one on either side of Eeyore in his stick house. Eeyore looked at them and said, "What are you doing?" "We're sitting here with you," said Pooh, "because we are your friends. And true friends don't care if someone is feeling sad or alone or not much fun to be around at all. True friends are there for you anyway. And so we are here." "Oh," said Eeyore. "Oh." And the three of them sat in silence, and while Pooh and Piglet said nothing at all, somehow Eeyore started to feel a very tiny little bit better, because Pooh and Piglet were there. I think that is a beautiful story about the power of presence. It's a wonderful story. And after telling this story, I have both good news and bad news for you. Okay, so I'll share the bad news first. The bad news is that A.A. Milne, the author of the Winnie the Pooh books, did not write this. I was disappointed to learn this. This was a great story, but it probably emerged around 2018 on somebody's Facebook page somewhere. The good news, however, is that I can now use the phrase fake poo. With a straight face. Legitimately. This story is fake poo. It is good fake poo. In fact, this fake poo is delightful. Isn't it? This fake poo does a great job of communicating the power of presence. Did you ever think fake poo could accomplish so much? Well, Well, so what is the takeaway here? Well, maybe sometimes fake poo is almost as good as real poo. I don't know. Maybe a better takeaway for us is that, you know, we're in America, we're in a country that, you know, we value our liberty and our individualism, and all of that has a goodness to it. But we also know that good comes from being with others, right? We are individuals, we're also social beings. We're also social beings. We need other people to flourish in our humanity. So, as we enter into this Advent season, I want to reflect a little bit on God's presence in our lives. And to do that, I wanted to share a story about fake poo with you. And secondly, I wanted to share a couple theological ideas. And then I've got a music recommendation for you. And then we'll wrap it up. Okay? So, a couple ideas about, theological ideas about the presence of God. Now, I've been trained by many Jesuits, so I'm inclined to, seek the wisdom of Ignatius of Loyola, even though in every picture I see of him, he looks super judgy, doesn't he? He's kind of giving you sort of a side eye there, like, But his idea about presence here, I think, is pretty helpful. He says, whatever you are doing, that which makes you feel the most alive, that's where God is. So I think if we thought for a couple minutes about where we feel alive, where we feel empowered, where we feel like we're flourishing, we can say on some level God is here. And we can name God's presence there. So I think that's a great place to start, right? We can also talk about this idea of incarnation. This is a super important element of Catholic Christian theology, right? This whole mystery of the incarnation is pretty foundational to our faith. And we can sum up this idea of incarnation just by saying, in the person of Jesus Christ, God took human nature upon himself in order to redeem it. Powerful. And there's this wonderful old hymn in the letter to the Philippians. It goes something like this. Christ Jesus, who, though he was in the form of God, did not regard equality with God something to be grasped. Rather, he emptied himself, taking the form of a slave, coming in human likeness, and found human in appearance. He humbled himself, becoming obedient to death, even death on a cross. The divine became human for us. That is an amazing idea. An amazing idea. And it's something that we think about a lot during Advent. We think about how God came into this world, and we wait for the Christmas event, you know? And we also are waiting for the second coming of Christ. Okay, so these are two kinds of ways that we're simultaneously awaiting the arrival of the divine in our lives. And I love that earlier tonight we got to sing O come, Emmanuel. Emmanuel, of course, is a name that means God with us, right? And that's a name that's all about the presence of God, right? So much is wrapped up in that name. So, this is just funny. I wanted to share. So the three magi coming to visit the little baby Jesus, you know, and I've got friends that have birthdays around Christmas time, and I know it's hard.
Yeah.
The struggle is real, and I don't mean to make light of it, But this is hilarious. This has to be my favorite meme. One of the Magi says to Jesus, "Just to be perfectly clear, these gifts are for your birthday and Christmas." Yeah. I've got another favorite Easter meme, but because of the Paschal Mystery, we've got to wait a little bit to get there. Another day. All right. In our faith tradition, we also have this idea of God's presence in the practice of liturgy, the public work of the church, the public prayer of the church. And certainly in the Catholic tradition, we have sacraments, which are great. It's one of my most favorite things about being Catholic. It's all these visible signs of the invisible. And we can say that, we know that God's grace is happening all over the world, all the time, and we cannot contain God's grace. But we know that when we celebrate the sacraments, these are concrete moments where we can experience God's grace in real ways, right? And particularly, we've got the gift of liturgy. It's our tradition to celebrate the liturgy of the Eucharist every Sunday, a little more often. But we know that when we show up to Mass, when we show up to the liturgy, that we can count on God's presence in at least 4 different ways, right? We can encounter God and have God present in the Word being proclaimed, in the living Word. We know that Christ is present in the person of the ordained minister, in persona Christi. We are also fortunate to have this practice of, in the Catholic tradition, knowing that Jesus is present in the Blessed Sacrament in a unique way. So that's the third way there. And then fourth, Christ is present in the people of God that are gathered there in prayer. So these are 4 real ways that we are able to experience the presence of Christ in our lives. Now, just want to say a quick word about this idea of the Blessed Sacrament and believing in the true presence of Christ there. It's a wonderful practice that we have of Eucharistic adoration. It's a wonderful way to practice your spirituality, great way to pray. And we also believe very strongly that Christ is present in those who are in need, in the vulnerable, in the people of God. And I just always have this image of someone who takes all of this seriously, just kind of being stuck in the vestibule of a church, saying, I want to go this way, also I want to go this way. What do I do, right? So that's a tension that we have in our lives as Catholics. How do we kind of have some choices on how we recognize God's presence. How do we follow up on that? So, we've talked about one of our beliefs in the Catholic tradition, the idea of incarnation. We've talked about some of our prayer and liturgical practices and the sacraments. But now we also can talk about some actions that we can take to refresh us and bring us closer to the presence of God. And that's through the practice of ministry. Right? So I mentioned that I've been schooled by a lot of Jesuits. I've also been schooled by Dominicans. So I need to quote one here. Thomas O'Mara, in this book, The Theology of Ministry, he says, the goal of ministry is to serve the kingdom of God, which theologians have called grace. And grace is the dynamic presence of the triune God. So the goal of ministry is to somehow embrace the presence of the triune God. Now, the grace is God's work, of course. but we have a role to play in bringing others to it, in sharing it with others, right? In creating environments where people feel welcome and can recognize that presence, that dynamic presence of the triune God as well. And a big part of my life has been in various forms of ministry. I know this to be true. I know that sometimes ministry is a little bit more for the minister than the ministee, right? And thank God for that, because it's gotten me through some times, right? Now, I spend most of my time these days somewhere in the healthcare ministry. So I want to say a little word about this, and I'm not going to say where I work exactly, but it rhymes with SSM Health, and this is our mission statement. I like this mission statement a lot. It's part of what drew me to the organization, in part because it's so short. Some organizations have super long mission statements that kind of tire you out as you read them. It's short, but it's also deeply filled with meaning. And I do want to note that this is a mission statement that can be slightly tweaked and adjusted for almost any ministry in the church, okay? Through what we're doing, we seek to reveal the presence of God. We seek to invite people in and reveal the presence of God. Now, where I work, we really, really work hard to take this presence thing seriously. I know that in some organizations you go to meetings and everybody flips open their laptop and you got a computer between you and it's hard to know if anyone's paying attention. And I'm all about technology, don't get me wrong here, but where I work, I can tell you that is a very rare thing. When you have a meeting with someone, we really work hard to fully practice presence. We're certainly not perfect at it. You know, we've got so many competing priorities, so many things seeking our attention, and I think that we can say pretty safely that these days, attention might be one of the most precious resources that we have. I've got a friend who told me that when his daughter was growing up, you know, he was there, you know, maybe do an email on his phone or something, and she comes up to talk to him, and, you know, he's trying to pay attention, but also trying to get some work done, you know, kind of thing. And finally his daughter says, "Dad, listen to me with your eyes." Oof. But I think that's a good story of what it's like, right? How hard it is to direct our attention in the right way. And certainly in the care of patients, you know, all throughout our ministry, inpatient, outpatient, surgery, labs, all the things. We know that we are serving people in a particular moment in their life, a unique moment, where people are particularly vulnerable, right? So we've got a huge opportunity to get it right. And it's in that practicing of presence that we can share God's healing presence. It's a beautiful, beautiful opportunity. All right, so now I'd like to wrap things up. I want to end on a good note, if you will. Last week was Thanksgiving. Traditionally, the day after Thanksgiving in my house is the day that you can begin Christmas music, right? So we've come into Christmas music season. You almost can't escape it. But I want to ask, what about Advent music season? That is my favorite. Absolutely my favorite. I love Advent music, and there's only a few weeks of the year that we can really enjoy it in its glory, right? So we got to sing O Come, Emmanuel earlier. That's great. People Look East. That is a banger. I love it. Absolutely. I Saw Three Ships. Another banger. I like it. Away in a Manger. A manger. That joke works better on paper. Banger. Manger. Manger. Okay. You know this song, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I have to confess, hate is a strong word. And I hate this song with the heat of 1,000 suns. I really do not like it. But I'm bringing it up for a reason, trust me. Did you know how this song came to be? So somebody they bought a tape recorder, and at that time they were doing some experiments with like speeding things up and slowing things down and re-recording it, and that's how they figured out. This was the very first Chipmunk song, 1958. Did you know that it won 3 Grammys? 3 Grammys. I question all of the Grammys at this point. And now, I get a novelty song, it's fun. I don't knock it on that point, but when I listen to this, I always heard the toys, the consumerism. You know, if you remember some of the words, that Christmas time is near, time for toys, time for cheer. We've been good, but we can't last. Hurry Christmas, hurry fast, right? You know, something about a plane and a hula hoop. That was the big toy that year, right? 1958. We can hardly stand the wait. Please, Christmas, don't be late. So almost all of my life, I hated this song terribly. Until I ran into this album by Rosie Thomas, A Very Rosy Christmas. This is my music recommendation to you today. On this album, there is a wonderful mix of songs. Originals, classics, all the things. And Rosie Thomas does a version of Christmas Don't Be Late that is slowed down, doesn't play around with high-pitched voices, right? She adds some verses, because in the original there was only one verse. And it kind of flows into this emo-esque, shoegazing banger of a song at the end, where it loops around, Christmas come, the world cannot wait, please don't be late. Christmas come. And listening to this song, not only did I enjoy it, but I heard the words maybe for the first time. And if we move beyond the toys and the hula hoops, this song is on point. It is right there. Christmas. If we think about the event of Christmas as the incarnation, as God's presence in our lives, don't be late. I can't wait for that. The world cannot wait for that. Through this lens, this lyric becomes a prayer where we can voice our desire for God's grace, God's dynamic presence in our lives. And thanks to Rosie and her crew here, I've come to love this song with the heat of 1,000 suns. So, that's my recommendation today. And this is my prayer for us. That we all pray for God's presence in our lives. And that Christmas won't be late. That it'll get here on time, right when we need it. So, happy Advent, and thanks for spending some time with me reflecting on God's presence in our lives.